Hi everyone, welcome back to Rich's Garage and part 1 of the AMT Lowboy trailer build. I want to show you some of the pieces before I assemble them into the final suspension and just talk about a couple of little things that I found. One thing, there's a lot of sanding to clean up all the pieces. It appears that some of the molds were just offset. If you look at the spring housings here, one side was actually a little bit higher than the other, so it was a lot of sanding to clean that up. One little thing I just show you in here, if you look at the spring pack, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up, but there's a little injection pin mark there. So all I did to try and give the appearance of the spring again was take a metal file and just use the corner and scribe. You can probably do it with an X-Acto knife too. Just rough scribe some spring leaves in there. So I don't even know if you'll be able to see it once it's finally assembled. So I just wanted to show you that. The other thing is with the instructions. I believe one of these numbers is reversed with one of the numbers for, if you look at the suspension, what it calls out. When you cut the pieces off the sprue, you wind up getting one of these pieces with this, and if you look close you'll see that there's a notch. There should be a notch upper and lower for this bracket. So there's two things that you'll find out. One is, let's find it here, you want that these plates are offset. So when you cut this and you see the two pieces, if the halves are lining up and you glue that, you're going to be screwed, because the suspension mounts, right, have to go on the inner one, and then the outer ones go over the axle. So it looks something like, let's see here, this goes on the inside. It could be something like this. I can hold this with this piece here. So this is what you're trying to achieve when you put this together. So just double check before you glue it. Here's the piece I'm talking about that's got this notch in it. Alright. And that notch is for this bracket. It has that piece, so that's going to go in here and sandwich with this other piece that goes on the back side. So you get something like that. Alright, so just take a peek when you cut it. You're going to find if you don't have it right, you'll have two sets of male pins, and you'll have these plates on top of each other, and you know that's not what they're looking for. The last thing I want to show you is the brake, the air brake cylinder and bracket and linkage assembly. I wound up cleaning up a lot of this because I want to detail paint this, but the end piece, when you cut this off the sprue, this is going to be about a third of what it actually was. So I just used this is a 100 grit emery board and sanded that down to get the fit that I wanted. The reason being is, if I put this back in here, when this mounts on here, without sanding it, you have a gap between the axle housing, and this is supposed to be the square piece, the bracket that's holding the air cylinder. So it sticks out, a fair amount. And I decided I just wanted to fit that better. So that's why I went ahead and sanded that down. Let's get it in there a little bit better. So that'll look something like that. But what I'm going to do is paint those separately. So what this is, this is the linkage, the rod that actuates the S-cam and the drum brake. This little piece that comes off is the bracket that's welded to the housing, and then on here, the square piece is the bracket that's welded to the housing, and then the air cylinder goes in. So when the air brakes are applied, the piston pushes out, this pivots right through this bearing, this rod rotates the S-cam, applies the brake shoes to the drum. So that's how the air brakes work. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wind up doing some more detail painting on that. So I'm going to assemble this without those pieces in place, prime the sub-assembly, and that's that. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to put this together, and then I'll show you what it looks like. One last thing before I do that. When you glue the two halves of what's going to be the axle housing, I took one of the axles and I went through and I pushed it through, and you can see it's a little firm to push through. So I would do that before you assemble this, otherwise you're going to be putting a fair amount of force on the whole assembly. I didn't sand out the groove on the half before I put it together, but I'm glad that I did try and run this through, to make sure that that's going to slip in fine, because it did take a little bit of basically using the axle as a reamer to clean out the hole. And again, you're going to find that they're a little bit offset, and there's a lot of sanding if you choose to take off the seam lines when you put everything together. Alright, that's it for now. I'm going to get back to you and show you what this looks like together